Mr. Jon Hudson. Good to have you here with us. How you been doing?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good, Dave. Glad to be here. Thanks for hanging out. Do appreciate it. I know it's late for some of you, so it's nice for you all to hang out and listen in.
Absolutely. You're having a little bit of a microphone issue there.
Let's see here. Let's do. Oh, hold up. I got it. Hold up.
You got it? He's figuring it out. This thing,
there we go.
This thing is literally held together by duct tape.
Yeah. Okay, is that better?
Product, much better. Thank you, my friend. All right. It's always good to have you here, Jon. Your knowledge is always very much appreciated on this show. So thank you so much for joining us once again. And another great piece from you this past weekend, working with Gemma Jade, Thin Lizzy, and Big Willie on the After Hours show.
So much fun. So much fun.
Oh yeah,
really enjoying that. Yeah. No. They're it's just nice when you get to work with nice people, you know. But yeah, no, I mean it's been, you know, to me, this is actually it's a very interesting and also very challenging time to be invested in this topic, because I don't know how many of you have heard, but there is this thing going on somewhere else on the planet this bad and it's ugly, and it's taking up almost every single mainstream news data feed. Full stop. It's astounding. And so it's hard to go, right? But there are some very, very interesting things going on. Like, for example, our friend. Please go ahead. Please
get into that. You know, I don't mind spending a couple of minutes on that. Look, we don't talk a lot of politics on this show, but I mean, it is difficult when the entire world right now, Jon, is wondering what is going to go on. Are we going to be ending up in some sort of nuclear confrontation? We don't know really what's going on. The media is playing, you know, propaganda on both sides. It is a very nasty time to be on the internet or on television these days.
Yes, absolutely. There is also a magnificent opportunity to really revel in the amazing nature of the human being. I mean, the stories that are coming out, I mean, you know, okay, sure, throw out half of them if you're, you know, sure, throw out 2/3 of them if you're that paranoid, right? But, you know, even if 1/3 of them you look at, I mean, these are some incredible stories of strength. It's some incredible stories of courage, some incredible stories of standing up for what you believe in, and whether you're wrong or not, if you believe it, more power to you, you know? And so, you know, to me, to me, the way I'm seeing different countries come together, the way I'm seeing different groups come together, I'm seeing, you know, some real, you know, unity in certain areas. And, you know, I don't know. Like I said, I really kind of see it as an opportunity to really kind of revel in some really phenomenal humans doing some really phenomenal things.
Well, you know what? Let's just, excuse me. Let's just hope that cooler minds prevail very, very soon, and we can finally, you know, kind of get back to where we were and just hating each other. It's a little bit more easy than watching the world potentially going to blow up.
Yeah, if anyone's feeling particularly melancholy, may I recommend your favorite drink and that song by Sting about the Russians loving their children too. It'll give you something to think about.
I hear you, my friend. I hear you. All right, what do you got for us tonight?
So, who is our favorite UFO person in the whole universe?
I'm going to say Anjali must be back in the news.
You know, and you know, let me just I always try to say this before I say anything about her. She's a very unique cat. She's got a good spine, and she will talk to you. She will listen to you. She will be polite. She will be disagreeable, but she will be very kind about it, and she's handling a lot of this very well. And so I think that's something that always has to be stated, because you know, even in this interview that I'm about to talk about, they spent some time talking about this very topic, about her demeanor and how different it is and how important it is to the dialogue and what we're all going through. But basically, you know, the guy over at Truth Seekers, Steve, I don't know why I can never remember how to pronounce his last name.
Steve Cambion.
Steve Cambion did a really, really good show. I'll provide a link to it. It's actually, you know, I'll be honest with you, sometimes his shows aren't my thing. This was fantastic. And you know, he had the author of that other film, the What About Lou, on with him, and he was dialoguing with this other researcher whose name escapes me at the moment. I believe Craig was his name. You know, basically, and it was a good dialogue going on between them. It was actually a very interesting exchange between them, because what became clear at one point is that the two guys on the podcast and the researcher who was chatting with them, they were basing a lot of their conclusions on his research, but they had come to a different conclusion than he had, and they were surprised by that. And then they actually went through the process of reconciling it between the two of them, which was actually a really interesting thing to listen to. But what I wanted to really get to is the kind of the highlights of what popped out through this whole process, because what's happened is that while there has been some confusion about the actual identity of the landowners, there is a belief now that the real people involved, because it does appear that there's two sets of individuals.
Well, let me stop you right there, because I think what we have to do is for a number of our listeners, we have to take them back to understand what this Anjali person is all about.
That's a good point. Yeah, please. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, that's kind of your job here. I'm interviewing you.
I'm kidding. I'll do it. So she is, like I said, she's fun. I have to admit, some bias in that, on a personality level, I like her. Her background as an intelligence officer has checked out. It was some time ago, and it wasn't. You know, I don't think she put in 30 years, but she's all that really kind of checked out. So her background appears to be what she said it was. But essentially, what's happened is that this one researcher has been able to actually interview the landowner, and the gentleman tells a very, very different story with a couple very interesting highlights.
That's Charlie Weiser, by the way.
Charlie Weiser, yeah, correct.
So the idea was behind this that Anjali said that a few years ago she went over to these people's houses, and this gentleman named Wayne took her into a tunnel in the mountain by his house, and there was aliens in there. And she was going to bring an entire board and had Wayne's permission to bring people in there to make this contact with extraterrestrials that were living underground.
I'm sorry. Yes, but I'm sorry. So what I was trying to get to is that so she's been telling this whole story for some time, and everyone's been skeptical, but there has been very little data one way or the other. It's just been basically on her word. And now what we have is a interview with the landowner, where the landowner basically goes through and very methodically lays out the event in contrast to how she lays it out. And there are stark differences between the two. And both of them are aware of this. And they've actually discussed it between themselves, the fact that they see this so differently, and they have not been able to come to any consensus between the two of them.
So what are some of these disagreements?
Well, so some of the more mechanical ones are the fact that, there was obviously questions about clarity of mind, and whether there were any drugs involved. And while she claimed that there were none, what Wayne basically said was that there was a cannabis oil that was used, and that that it was not a cannabis oil that he felt was significantly impactful. It's very confusing as to what he meant by cannabis oil, because typically that would be like a CBD oil, which would have no intoxicating effects. But there are people who refer to oils as other things that do have THC in them. So it's unclear to anyone whether it actually had any psychoreactive elements in what she consumed. But it is being brought up as a point of contention that essentially she said that there was nothing consumed, and Wayne very quickly, said, "Oh no, actually we'd all taken this cannabis oil, and then we went on a walk." Right. And he actually says that he felt that her experience was influenced by the oil. Wayne actually says that. So there is significant reason to mention it. I think it's hard, because I think a lot of cases people are seeing things while they're in relaxing areas doing relaxing things. And so they're likely to be a little bit intoxicated. And so just because you are a little bit intoxicated doesn't mean you didn't see something. However, if some of the parties you're with actually believe that what you saw was the direct result of something you consumed, that might be a data point that, someone might care about. So as far as, it goes on, basically what Wayne says is that he doesn't contest the digging of the tunnel directly or the location of the tunnel directly. He contests the complete existence of the tunnel in entirety. Claims that there was never any tunnel. He has no idea what she's talking about at all. He claims that there was no contact with any sort of entities or aliens of any sort. Furthermore, he says that the actual night of the event, she said nothing to him or his wife about the tunnels or the contact. Did not mention it. Now, one of the greatest things about this is that there was a health check called by the daughter to the location for Angelique. And so there was an ambulance that was actually sent out, and they did a check on her. It's unclear exactly what they did, but they did some sort of a welfare check on her. And so we have the records, or I shouldn't say Steve has the records of this event. So we do know that she was on the property at a given date, and everyone agrees with that data point, right? Now, the one of the other things that came out was that at one point when they were debating the details and their deltas between the details, that basically he offered to sell her the land, all of it, like sight unseen, for $10 million. And said, you can do whatever you want with it. And what was interesting was that instead of just saying no or saying that she'd look into it, according to him, she made some offhanded comment about the fact that Bigelow would pay twice that for much less land with much less activity on it, or something like that. Like, so right. Why she'd bring that up?
Hold on right there. We're talking about Anjali. Now, this is a lady who claimed that she met this guy Wayne and his wife Trish, and they took her to this mountain on their property in California, went into this cave, and there were aliens in there. But now Wayne and Trish are like, there was no aliens. Anjali was tripping on some devil's lettuce oil, and we don't know what the hell she's talking about, and we want nothing to do with this. That's pretty much the gist of it, right there, John?
Yes. And let me just point out that I have had a lot of friends who have played with the devil lettuce, and none of them have ever told me that it brought them aliens. As just, a side note.
Well, hey, aliens can pop up at any time, man. Aliens can pop up at any time. But Anjali is actually defending her notion and her side of this compared to everybody else.
Yes. Oh no, she still completely stands by her story. And she basically holds that that Wayne is covering it up, and that she doesn't claim to know why, but hold on a second, excuse me. She doesn't claim to know why he's covering it up, but you know, her claim is that it did happen and that he's making it up, and you know, and her claim is that, you know, it did really happen. And so you have him basically saying that, you know, he basically believes that what happened to her was either you know, was essentially you know, hallucinations brought on by the oil. What was interesting was that that became kind of predominant hypothesis in the conversation for what might have triggered what she saw. And then the researcher, Craig, who actually, you know, did the work, he was the one that came back and said, no, that's actually not what I believe. What I believe happened is that she had other things happen to her, either through meditation or through other drug adventures. She had other events and she conflated them in her memories. And that's what he thinks happened.
You know what? I mean, John, could it be as simple as this? Okay, the way the UFO crowd took off after this story and the way Anjali kind of made a spectacle of it, it would be very easy to see this Wayne and Trish to all of a sudden say, look, what the hell is she doing? What is she getting us into? We don't want any part of this. It would be very easy for them to say that.
Oh, no, you could even have a ton of people advising them to do that. Don't ruin your lives. Let her ruin hers. I have this story about this guy that came to this guy, Dave Scott, with these fairy pictures. It's sad.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, could that be
sure,
what we're
absolutely. I mean, no. I mean, that's the rotten part about this is that for this to be in any way, shape, or form conclusive, you have to take the word of these individuals, which may or may not be a wise move, but then you have to ask, why are you taking their word over anyone else's, right? Because what you have here is you have conflicting observational accounts, right? With no direct evidence either way. And there is evidence that the event, that they were all at that location on that evening. So that's good. I mean, it's really nice. In the future, everyone should call welfare checks for paranormal events. That was actually a very helpful thing to have happen. That became a great checkpoint for the whole story. But yeah, I mean, but you know, here's the thing. Okay. So, you know, if someone were to ask me personally, you know, do I believe her? You know, no, I don't necessarily believe that what she believes happened, but I am in agreement even with Steve, who said that he believes that she believes what she's saying is true. And I do. I believe that she believes that she's being honest. Now, I don't know what actually happened, but I do believe that she's being honest. So to me, it's a question of how did she come to believe this? And did she come to believe this because of some real event? Or did she come to believe this because of some other event? Either way, it's actually probably something we would like to know. And let's face it, when you look at all the stories that you hear from experiencers of screen memories and memory manipulation and all that stuff, is it really that far-fetched that both of their memories were messed with? I mean, it's very hard to tell. It's so frustrating.
It is totally frustrating. All right, we got to move on here, man, as we continue on with the UFO report. Ross Coulthart, Ralph Blumenthal, two reputable reporters, journalists, investigative journalists, meeting for the first time.
Well, first off, I was surprised. Like, I would have thought those two would have run into each other at some point in their careers. But I guess geography being what it is. But no, first time them getting together, and they did it on a YouTube panel. I didn't actually I didn't get a chance to actually get terribly deep into it. And to be honest with you, these kind of interviews, I kind of like to listen to the first time, like as a geek, like I just like to enjoy it, sort of thing, instead of kind of tearing it all apart. So I really encourage everyone to go check it out. But what I think is so interesting about it is what we have I guess we've all talked and lamented over the years about the fact that there weren't many, like, not just real journalists, but good journalists that were paying this story, its dues. And now we've reached a point where we have multiples doing it, and we have enough of them doing it that we have the time to take two of them and put them on a pedestal like this and get a little excited about the fact that they're talking for the first time and make a big deal out of it, and which is kind of cute, but the point is that we finally have enough good journalists that we can actually do that, right? I mean, it's like, what a change, right? I mean, it wasn't that many. I mean, look, I mean, you're far more sensitive to this than I am, right? I mean, it's like, how many years were you just hoping that at some point we would get just 3 or 4 of them that could take it seriously,
Well, I agree. I agree. The problem that we have with the journalism right now is we have a bunch of editors who don't want to run these stories, number one, and number two, we have nobody in North America on the television side outside of the bow tie wearing Tucker Carlson who wants to actually delve into this either, but he asks a bunch of fluffball questions about it.
And I have a solution to this, and I offer a challenge to everyone listening. What we need sponsors that want this story sold. So what we need UFO products. So everyone's got to go out there and invent and then we can sell UFO products. Because this is the problem: is that what sells on these shows is things about toilet paper and napkins, because that's what the advertise. You know what I'm saying? It's like, this is very much a consumer fed problem in many ways. There's no advertisers begging for UFO content.
Well, I understand that. But let's get back to the point. Ralph Blumenthal is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. We have Ross Coulthart, who's an Emmy Award winning journalist out of Australia. And
not just that. I would say that what you have here is you have 2 people who are actual peers in the best sense of the word, in that you have 2 gentlemen who both, after having a good career, decided to use up some of their credits to explore a very fringe topic, right? Did so by writing very, very, very impactful books, and both ended up being at the forefront of mainstream media content in each of their respective countries that vastly changed this entire story. So I mean, it's I call it cute, but the truth of the matter is that, I mean, those guys are as close as you get to Titans, at least, for the present moment, right?
Well, I agree with you, but the point that I was getting is, we have 2 major journalists here who know what they're talking about, who know how to cover a story. What's the overall outlook from them regarding the UAP story?
Well, it's not that they I don't get any sense that they're ready to go anywhere beyond the data they're reporting, which is I really admire in both of them. But what you have is you have and I can only really point this out for Ross, so I apologize, Ralph. But what I see in Ross is I see such classic, just nose to the grindstone reporting being done for this topic. And that sounds silly, but in many ways, that's what's so amazing about it. Is that what you have is it'd be like getting a professional baseball player to come play some other sport and take it seriously, right? I mean, it was I don't know. To me, it's hard to kind of put a nail on. But what you have is you have them looking into very specific details. So for example, you have Ross trying to follow up on the atomic weld that the Navy architect reported to him as being discovered. Trying to track that down. classically, I believe we have a lot of cases where data gets reported and no one follows up on it, and or follow up is very minimal. And what you have with Ross and certainly with Ralph Blumenthal, with his books to the nines, you have you're just dogged researchers that just dig and dig and dig. And to me, one of the reasons why I like listening to Ross is that he often finds things that I didn't, or comes to insights that I didn't think of, and it's like, hey, wow, that was cool, like good thinking. We
got to move on here. Elizondo talking Roswell. We mentioned this briefly last week too.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to make sure we brought it up because I know it was a story that meant a lot to you, Dave. But yeah, so the UFO Garage guys, once again did this great story. I just want to mention it again because I'm so proud of what they did, and I just thought it'd be a fun thing to mention because I know the Roswell stuff means so much to you, Dave, and I want to make sure everyone heard about it. Basically in their interview, he actually gives I don't know if you can call it an update for Roswell, but he gives unnecessary data about Roswell, and basically it infers that there was some event, infers that there was more than one crash location, and makes a rather derogatory comment about the ridiculousness of needing that much gear to pick up a weather balloon. So he dances very carefully, but he is trying super hard to play those lines, right?
I loved it. The funny part. Awesome. What the funny part about it is, Ben and Joe. I talked to Ben after that from UFO Garage. He didn't even know the magnitude of what Elizondo just said. He was so awesome. Jaw dropped. He didn't know how to respond. It was awesome. Phenomenal.
That's awesome. That's perfect. That's beautiful.
My friend, we got to say goodnight here. I know we're going to cut it a story short, but we could save that for a couple days from now. Another great report from the fedora-wearing Jon Hudson on Spaced Out Radio.